Thank you. How are you? Very well.
How are you? Love your shirt.
No Comcast, huh? We're still down?
Yeah, we're down.
For sure, this is a
Okay, completely down. Completely down.
I can get you a hard copy.
No, I'll look at it.
She's amazing.
Patricia, do you have a hard copy available?
I do.
I would
you like it?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, because it's going to get me.
It's fall colors.
Good evening. Welcome. Welcome to the governing board meeting of the Cabrillo Unified School District. The school board met in closed session from 6 to 7:04 and took no action. Moving on to item number 6, Pledge of Allegiance. We have Roman Rodriguez, who has volunteered to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Welcome, Roman. All rise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Roman. Takes us to item 7, adoption of the agenda as presented. We have an emergency item to be placed on the agenda. Tony, would you like to give us the background on the emergency item?
Yes, after the publication of the agenda, the Boys and Girls Club of the Coast Side came to the district with a request to apply for a California Education 21st Century Learning Centers Program grant. And the due date of the action required by the board to grant permission for them to write the grant on behalf of Cunha Intermediate School is after the December board meeting. So therefore, in order for the board to grant that permission and meet the deadline for the grant, it needs to be acted upon this evening.
Prior to the,
Yeah, prior to December, so it would have to be acted upon this evening. So for that reason, it qualifies as an emergency item that could be added to the agenda.
Great. Okay. Do I have a motion to amend the agenda?
So moved. I second.
Okay. All in favor of the amended agenda?
Aye.
Aye. Adoption of agenda is complete. And that moves us to item 8, student staff community recognition.
I'm actually going to invite Mr. Ward up, the principal at Hatch Elementary School, to help make this presentation.
Good evening. I'm here as principal of Hatch, but I'm also in conjunction with the HEAL project, which is at Hatch Elementary School and Fairlawn View, and I'd like to invite Annette up and Joy Dardanelle. And I'd also like to say and Raj Betcher is principal at Pillarcitos. We have many different sites and students involved, so I hope I'm okay moving this. I'm sorry. I just wanted to say that we have this great program at both schools where students get to work in a community setting, and I just wanted Annette to tell very quickly about what HEAL is, in case you don't know.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having us tonight.
Hello.
Hi, my name is Annette Ochoa. I'm an instructor at the at Hatch Elementary for the HEAL project. We are a nonprofit that works directly with schools all over the county, actually, and we teach them about health, healthy habits, nutrition, that sort of thing, environmental agriculture or environmental sciences, agriculture through gardening and experiential learning, and obviously we focus on children of all ages. So we have elementary school students all the way to high school students. And today we wanted to acknowledge a few of those students who have done outstanding work for us. And so can I just begin with that?
Sure.
So first we're going to acknowledge the Pillarcitos students who have been helping me with noontime sports and garden club throughout the entire year and even some of last year. They've been doing an amazing job, and I'm really proud of them. Kenny Huerta is not here today to receive his certificate, but he was very wonderful in our program. Beatriz, Luis. Thank you. Nayeli Procopio. Ernesto Torres. These students have done an amazing job with leadership and shown responsibility and have learned a skill set that I think will be valuable to them later on in life. The following students are from Hatch Elementary School and Fairlawn View and have shown dedication to the project through Garden Club, the noontime sports program, the classes, and even in summer camps. We have Ashley Malarkey. Oh, yeah. And Farmers Market, too. I forgot about that. Good job, Ashley. You can go up right there. Oh, you're shaking hands. Matthew Mendez. Julio Rodriguez. And Raul Rodriguez. And Nika Durham from Fairlawn View. And lastly, we have Danny Hara, who cannot be here either. I just wanted to say thank you guys for all of the good work that you guys have done. We have families involved, we have students involved all year round, and we just want to say congratulations and thank you so much, guys.
Sorry, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Oh, I missed Tito, sorry. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you to the district office and the board for being so supportive of HEAL. It's just been great at the sites. So, and special thanks to Pilarcitos for allowing those kids to come over and help, and they've been wonderful. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, HEAL. Thank you, students. We appreciate all of your hard work. It brings us to item 9, comments from the public related to items not on this agenda. And I just want to clarify for the public, and there are some comments here for items that are not on this agenda. We really appreciate public comments or being contacted and communicated about issues that are of concern. Unfortunately, under state law, we are not allowed to discuss an item that is not actually already on our agenda. And that might seem kind of odd to people. I know that sometimes when you come up and speak, it feels uncomfortable when we just sit here and we can't discuss the item that you're bringing up. But it was passed in the 70s to guarantee that boards didn't make decisions that hadn't been properly agendized beforehand, so that we couldn't come and make a decision about something and nobody would have any notice of it. So that's the reason for that, and I know that that can be frustrating when you come with a new idea, but that is the reason that we can only listen to public comments that are not actually agendized. So I want to explain that to you before we do that. We do invite you to make individual meetings with board members or to contact our superintendent for follow-up, for further information, to understand the issues that you might be bringing to the board. So I see that there are several comments, so I'd like to invite David Vesperini. And we also ask that you keep your comments to about 3 minutes and that you try not to repeat what other people have said. So if someone has already kind of said your comments, maybe summarize and say, I agree with what they have said. So that would be great. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is David Vespremi. I'm a resident of Moss Beach and a parent of 2 small children that will be entering Cabrillo Unified School District next year. I'm making this comment, and I think you'll be hearing from some other parents and families tonight on the same issue, loosely in connection with agenda item 11, actually. But because there's a common thread with respect to these comments that relates to the return of a public school busing program for Mid-Coast residents, I believe that now might be an appropriate time to ask that a future agenda item be identified where we can delve into that more specifically. So that would be my request, is that we try to find an opportunity to have a future agenda item on that theme. The reason for my public comment tonight, and it was suggested by Ms. Dardanelle when I attended the kindergarten forum organized by COSIDE Mothers Club, was I understand you'll be hearing from the consultants on the strategic planning and allocation of Measure E funding. And that I further understood that the return of public school busing wasn't part of what was being looked at in terms of that funding allocation. I think there's a dire need for the return of public school buses. I myself took advantage of the program when I grew up on the coast. You'll hear from some other parents here that also rode on those same buses that we would now like to have available for our children. So it seems that, of all the things that that money could be used towards, and I understand that, there's other things that are important, teacher salaries, of course, staff, equipment for classrooms. Certainly getting children safely to and from school is a very basic need, and it's one that hasn't been addressed very well to date. In fact, in our case, it's going to be making our first choice school likely unattainable. Kings Mountain is just too far out of the way without the busing program that used to exist to support it. So to the extent that we can identify a future opportunity to discuss that, and maybe if the board members would be willing to commit to coming back to the community with some ideas about how we might be able to fund and fast track a program along those lines, I'm sure would be much appreciated. This is something that would pay dividends not just for the parents and the families, but for the community at large. Certainly commuters have been feeling the brunt of the traffic impacts of thousands of cars on the road that could be removed from circulation if there were an efficient means of having the children attend via buses. Certainly it would model a green, ecologically sensitive way of transporting children to and from schools as opposed to individual cars, and I'm sure that's an important lesson that we want our children to have. It also would remove the stigma right now that only low-income children ride the bus and everyone else drives. I don't think there should be a stigma attached with riding the bus. In fact, I think it's an important social aspect of the learning process, and it allows children to spend more time with their parents at home doing the types of things that they would otherwise be doing if they weren't sitting in a car in traffic together. So with that, I'll wrap up my time here, and I'll let other people speak to the same issue. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Great, thank you. And now we have Michelle Heinzman.
Not one for public speaking, so I wrote it down. I agree with David on the importance of public transport, or not having our kids have to use public transportation and having busing for our children. Our family lives in Montara. I currently have 3 children that need to take Samtrans to and from school to go to Cunha and the high school. It's not always a safe and reliable way for my children to reach school or home again. When my 2 older boys were attending Cunha in 6th and 7th grade, they actually had quite a scary experience on the bus. The first bus that they would usually take was full, and they were told to wait for another one. And the time of year it was, nighttime came quickly, and so by the time they got on the next bus, they were on Airport Boulevard, and it stopped at a bus stop, and they were told to exit, that this was the last stop. Well, this had never happened before. They didn't know what was going on. But the Samtrans driver insisted that they exit the bus, and so they did. And by this time, it was almost dark. They're 6th and 7th graders standing on Airport Boulevard, which is, as you know, kind of scary. And they didn't know what to do. They started walking. So for me as a parent to find out later that my children were basically stranded pretty far from home, being that we're in Montara, I was mortified. I called Samtrans, but it's not their responsibility to take care of our children. As I know, school busing would do, make sure that my child gets to their stop safely, where they usually would be. Another incident that has happened a couple of times for my 8th grade daughter this year alone is she's been stranded at the bus stop trying to get to school twice for a no-show bus. The first time I was already at work, she just walked back home and missed school. The second time it happened, I hadn't left for work yet, and so she called me on her cell phone, and I came down to the bus stop, and another mother evidently had been called, and we bused all the children from that stop. I had 4 of other children in my car alone. and other kids were commenting, if you didn't come, I'd still be standing there because my mom was already at work. And then I was late to work. Thank goodness I have a great boss, but, kind of makes it a little harder when, you can't always be there to do that. I did call Samtrans to find out what happened, and it was in fact a no-show bus. They said it was running late, and I said, well, how late? And they said an hour. My child could have been standing in the rain for an hour. That's not acceptable. Also, though, I realize they're not responsible for my child. I'm going to have a fourth child. He's at Fairlawn View now that will have to also go through some of these same situations. And to me, having to be a working parent and my husband, it's not safe and secure to feel like these things are happening and you don't know when you're at work if your child is at school. Are they at home safe? So I feel it is very important, if there is any way that funds could be allocated to bring buses back, that it would make it safer for me, safer for my children, and more secure for me to know that they're where they need to be. So, thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Brings us to Brian Dotson.
I also grew up on the coast, and I wanted to show my support for the reconsideration of the school busing program. Reinstating buses would have several benefits, including taking traffic off the roads, reducing traffic and air pollution. As far as I know, the district still owns the buses, and the routes could easily be reinstated. There was even a bus you could catch here at the bus barn at 6:45 that would take children up to Kings Mountain School, and then and return them at the end of the day. That's about all I have. Just want to show my support for the bus program.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Laszlo Vesperini?
Laszlo Vesperini, Moss Beach. Well, I don't have currently kids going to school, but I used to have them. My concern is really that it reflects very poorly in a community that we have every morning dozens and maybe 100 cars jamming up Highway 1, taking one kid at a time to the school. It's very inefficient. It causes terrible things to the traffic. And as I said, it just doesn't reflect very well on the community.
Great, thank you. And our fifth comment is Mark Fittone.
Thank you for the opportunity. I live in Montero. We have two small boys, and like a lot of other parents, we're going to be faced with the challenge of getting these guys to the Cunha School at some point. And I just feel that the timing of this is pretty good, because I just wrote a letter to the superintendent about this, and I checked with my brother-in-law. He actually runs the Union Gap School District in Washington, and he's told us that his budget for school buses is only like 1.5% of their total budget, which to me seems like it's, a can of corn. It would be easy to do this. And frankly, I think in this community where everybody pays, a significant amount of taxes, I think we could uphold our mission statement a little bit better and get this done for the kids and for the parents of our community. And that's about it.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Again, as I said, we're not allowed to discuss, and it doesn't actually fall under the agenda item on Measure E, is a report back from our Oversight Committee about how the funds have actually already been allocated, how they were committed this last year, and how that is in line with our parcel tax language as guaranteed under the parcel tax that we ran. So it's not an actual allocation decision, it's a report from the Oversight Committee. Just to let you know, and you're all welcome to stay for that and our strategic planning overview, where he's going to talk about views and comments from the public throughout the whole strategic planning process. So those will be interesting topics Parks, you're all welcome to stay for that. And again, please follow up with Tony or any of us individually to see, oh, there's another one? Patty's another green one. Come on up. Oh, there's 2 more? Okay. So we're not done.
Sorry.
That's okay. Audrey Patchett?
Hi, I'm Audrey Patchett. I live in Moss Beach. I have 2 kids, and I just want to basically echo the concern that people have been talking about tonight, and also hope to get more information about why the program was canceled and how we can maybe come together as a community to reinstate it. We've got a really powerful group of parents on the coast side, and I'd be happy to help put together a commission to make a program like that vibrant and successful again. I think that parents would definitely benefit from it, but I think everyone in the community could absolutely benefit from reducing the traffic in the mornings. Yeah. Okay, thank you very much, Audrey. Kim, welcome. Hi, Kim.
Hi, Kim Harrington. Kind of a last minute thing, but I saw this on social media and I thought it's probably a good idea to step in and just say my piece. I've been a lifelong coastside resident. Took the busing system to Fairlawn View from Clipper Ridge, back down to Cunha. It's an experience, right? Outside of all the great things that it'll do traffic-wise and all that, it is actually, you learn so much from your friends, from your neighbors. It builds community. It's definitely something that I would love to be a part of looking into, how we can kind of get that started. So like Avi was saying, there's a lot of really dedicated parents that would put the time and effort into seeing something like that reinstated. Thanks.
Great, thank you, Kim. So again, please follow up with the superintendent or individual board members to see where we can move forward with that.
Sorry, it's not really common, but how can we set a future agenda item then to, if we can't do it tonight?
Well, I recommend setting up a meeting with Tony to try and get some information
Okay.
and find out kind of maybe some of the history and the budget and the constraints and all of that kind of stuff. I think that that would be helpful probably to begin, and then we would figure out whether or not it was appropriate for a future agenda item.
Okay.
The president and the superintendent normally decide kind of what gets presented, but you may definitely request it.
So-
At a future time. But again, I think that it's useful to have all the information prior to having a discussion to know what
We've actually
possible
gathered quite a bit
actions.
of it, yeah. So, maybe what I'll do is I'll just follow up on behalf of the group, and then we'll try to arrange a time where we can either meet privately or during a
Yeah, I think that, good understanding of the budget would be a really useful thing in general. So that'd be great to meet on that. I'd be happy to meet with you with Tony and any members that would be interested. We don't have a budget presentation tonight, or I would invite you to stay around and hear all of our dire news about that. But that is not also on the agenda this evening.
Okay, well, thanks for hearing us. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. I appreciate public comment at any time. So, are there any further public comments? Anybody else who's interested? Thank you very much. That takes us to item 10, representative reports. I saw Tom back there.
Hey, how are you? I'd like to,
You don't want to hear Tom speak? Sorry, Tom. I tried to keep them around.
I have this effect everywhere I go lately.
No, that's not what the students say, Tom.
Yeah. I'm going to take a different approach.
Talk about clearing a room.
I do that. I'm going to take a different approach. I don't know how the approach is, but we're trying. Today, just from a union perspective, being that I have many hats, and one of them is union president. As I'm going through the day, I'm just thinking what a great job I have. Kids are fabulous. I mean, we have great students in the coast. They're fabulous kids. They make me laugh. Brenda sometimes when she was there. They're just great kids. And then all of a sudden I got all this massive union issues that came up. And my request is that we can start with everyone in this room, start somehow solving problems where they're not escalating. That there's somehow communication, and sometimes the workers are just taken care of. And we don't have to go to the next step. and we don't have to go to the next step. And just sometimes the right thing is done so that we can focus on teaching, because all the teachers who are involved in the union are with kids all the time. And the more energy I have in my classroom, that's where I want it to be. I don't want it being on going up the steps to try to prove something's right or wrong. So that's my request, is that we can start searching and working as one. And sometimes looking at the workers and saying, it's not going to hurt us, let's help the workers a little bit, and let's give them this, and let's take care of it and move on. All right? That's my hope.
Great. Thank you, Tom. Is there CSEA? Lana's not here. Anyone else for CSEA? Okay. That moves us to item 11, reports, information, and presentations.
It's going to take a minute to start the projector.
Patty, do you need these?
So over the past several months, including even in our recent strategic plan data gathering that we'll be hearing about, and in the next item, we've heard a piqued interest in knowing more about what we have for parent education, parent engagement, and parent involvement in our community. And tonight, along with some of our site administrators and other support staff, we're going to be sharing with you some of those key pieces that we have here in Cabrillo. Certainly not everything, but sort of not a comprehensive list, but some highlights of what we have. So I'd like to invite up Joy Dardanelle and Jim Ward, elementary principals, Lalo Lopez, our middle school principal, Allison Silvestri, our high school principal, Raj Betcher, the principal at Pilarcitos, Rosalva Segura, the migrant education program specialist, and Edgar Villafana, I didn't see, but he works with us in Star Vista, which is a support program for our students. And we're going to share with you different aspects that from the different levels in our school district. And I think that just the premise to start with this evening that we already all know is that when we work together with our parents and in our community, that the children are going to do better in school. And the Southwest Education Development had a report where they talked about the results of having parents involved in the school, including higher grades for students, better test scores, passing their classes, attending regularly, having better social skills and improved behavior, and ultimately that they graduate and go on to secondary school. There are 6 areas that the National Network of Partnership Schools suggests that schools can involve families in to help support children in school. And I think this evening you will hear that in Cabrillo we're covering all of those areas, including parenting skills, social programs, school programs, including how students are progressing and what their needs are, parent volunteerism, increasing parent volunteerism in our schools, involving parents in home learning activities, parents being included in the important decisions about their schools, and then coordinating activities with our businesses and agencies to provide social services for our parents. So some of the things that all of our schools have in common, you're very well aware of. Back to school nights, our parent conferences, our English learner advisory councils, open houses, opportunities for parents to be involved in PTO or PAC organizations, and our school site councils. Something that the community may not be as familiar with are our site safety committees that parents are involved in. And then for our bilingual families that we have translation services available. I'm going to turn the microphone over to Joy and Jim so they can share with you what it looks like in our elementary schools, and then we'll look at each of the levels as we go up.
Thank you. So today I found out that Jim and I were going to be partnering on this presentation, and one of the things I was so thankful for about that is that I am a new Cabrillo Unified School District parent. My daughter started kindergarten this year, and Jim is actually a former CUSD parent, so I felt like it was just a really great opportune time. former, to really represent parent involvement from the perspective of administrators, but also from the perspective of parents. And while the things that we talk about today are really almost like broad brushstrokes about what we're doing and how we get parents involved, from a parent perspective this year, I see something even more intimate, which is the anecdotal one-on-one interactions between parents and parents, as well as parents and teachers. Being able to sit in on my first parent conference as a parent, I was able to see teachers in a whole new perspective, working today at Fair Lawn View for Continent Day, which is tomorrow, side by side with parents, creating the Luceau Cave in A6. Again, just having great conversations with parents. And those are the types of anecdotal stories that you may not hear. I don't know what my colleagues have planned, but those are the things too, I think, behind the larger elements of this presentation. So in looking at what does parent involvement look like at the elementary schools, as well as what are some of the ways we celebrate and support our parent community, we're going to talk about it in different, different categories. So the first one is about building community. So with the elementary schools, we believe in we believe in school climates that foster a positive sense of community, and there are several different highlighted events that we have at each of our sites. At Kings Mountain, there's Tears and Tissues for new families, particularly for kindergarten, as well as other new families to Kings Mountain, where they have tea and tissues available for new families who come in on the first day of school. We also have a new event, the Family Fun Day at Hatch, which was actually quite recent. It was November 3rd, and it was almost like a PTO celebration of the different types of programs that they have to involve parents. At El Granada, as well as some of the other sites, we have Family Movie Night, and which they show movies with the family, which is a great way for parents to get to know other families as well. And at Fair Lawn View, we hold our annual talent show, where we get to see talent as well as get to eat delicious foods and celebrate as a community together. The next category that we're looking at as our elementary school group is the relationships. We believe in the value of building individual relationships with parents. One of the events that we have at Fair Lawn View in the mornings is Donuts for Dads. This year we're also going to be trying Breakfast with Champions as another variation of the theme. And El Granada also has the ELAC and PTO board coffee dates with the principal, in which the principal invites the PTO and ELAC board members to have coffee. And it's a very open agenda in which the principal is available, and it's proven to have just better collaboration between ELAC and PTO, as well as just stronger fundraising efforts from the collaboration. And I'm going to be turning the next section of this presentation to Jim Ward.
Thank you. And again, as an old Hatch parent, it's interesting. I've been reflecting a lot about parent involvement, and as I've come from the middle school to the elementary school, and it's just obviously a totally different environment. And I'm just continually blown away by the positive parent involvement that we have at all our sites. And from my experience at Hatch Elementary, it's just, I'm in awe of it every day. And I'm meeting with parents and thinking about what, and it all comes down to the bottom line is what's best for children. And I just think that, and it doesn't waver. So with healthy environments, all the sites at the elementary level believe in encouraging and supporting physical and emotional health. We have an Inclusive Schools Week where we talk about inclusivity and making sure all students understand the need to belong and accepting of others. At El Granada, there is a Second Harvest food bank, and that they come once a month to El Granada, and they after morning drop-off once a month, families can pick up a large box of fresh fruit and vegetables that they can take home, and that was facilitated by the Dolphin Club coordinator at El Granada. Communication, we believe in sharing information to families through a variety of pathways, the monthly online calendars. We also we are planning this year to do a combined incoming CUSD kindergarten parent night and potluck. And I have save the date cards for you. And if I can just pass those down. Thank you very much. That's coming up in June. The elementary principals and site directors, our site director, are collaborating to make that happen. And we also have parent education nights on different topics, whether it's on safety or parent topics of interest. Education, we believe in parents as the first teacher of their children. Fair Lawn View and Hatch do Oceans Weeks, and it's a long celebration of our environment that we live in, and wonderful activities going on, squid dissections, and great programs. Fair Lawn View has a wonderfully unique tradition of creating a new mural each year based on that sea creature of focus. And also we have volunteer parent librarian at Kings Mountain who helps run that program. And I'm going to turn it over to secondary schools. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. I go. Just press.
Right there.
It's been, 6 years? Last time I was in the classroom as a teacher. Lalo Lopez, Cunha Middle School. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. So for Cunha, let me start with the number 2013. I want you to think about that number and also find something in common with my colleagues here. I'm also a parent of a 3-year-old, Aled Granada. So I'm going through that process, middle age. I'm gonna reach Mr. Ward pretty soon. Now back to the number 2013. That's how many appointments were made, parents to meet with our teachers last week for our parent-teacher conference. I think Mr. Papalardo was one of them, and that was very successful. So parents met with each one of their teachers for 5 minutes. Like I said, 2013, I added the numbers. I think that's around 164 hours of teacher-parent talk. So that's very, obviously, highly engaged, and parents are very involved. And it's an impressive number, and I don't really boast or show up, but I think that's, I'm impressed by that. Existing support groups or programs, I'm second year here, and I just can't believe the level of parent involvement at Cunha. We have PTA. They do a lot of volunteer work. They do a lot of events to raise funds for our kids. They pay for instructional materials and also to help us to continue to improve the culture of the school. They pay for pizza for our teachers last week, and so they're very popular people. The President, Sue Freeberg, spoke to my staff yesterday and then asked for ways for teachers to be obviously more involved with PTA, so we have a really strong relationship there. Ed Fund, they pay for additional supplies that teachers need. Music boosters, sports boosters. We have a really strong sports program and music program, and that is thanks to our parents. Here's our challenge. 34% of our parents did not finish high school, did not graduate from high school. Education less of high school, obviously. 34% of our students receive free or reduced lunch, and 21% of our students are English learners, or long-term English learners, as I like to call them. And what we know is that parent education has an impact on student achievement. So the question for us at Cunha is, how do we go about involving parents who typically don't know, are not sophisticated to understand the system, either the educational system or a political system? How do we go about seizing the opportunity to help them out? One of the things that we are doing is a partnership with Cañada Community College. Basically, we are formalizing the partnership that we have with them and offering English as a second language for our parents, and also a technology class. For this year, we have 95 of our parents attending ESL classes 3 nights a week. and we have 45 of our parents taking the technology class. And typically, obviously, these are parents who are not highly educated. So I think that speaks to our efforts to continue to improve parent involvement and education. Something else that we are doing, which is pretty creative, is we have this community, this organization in the community called ALAS. And basically, the goal of that program is to increase students' self-efficacy through acknowledging their cultural background, through music, through traditions, and so on. So what we have done is develop a partnership with this group, and they are offering classes at CUNYA, and we have a club at CUNYA who is recruiting the kids. And what we see is that when these kids learn a musical instrument or learn a dance or learn history of their ancestors, something changed in them, and it has a really positive relationship to their education. So we're really proud of that. Something else that we're doing is forming a partnership with the migrant program. They have a curriculum. It's called PIQUE, and the goal is a comprehensive curriculum to help parents educate or provide support for their kids at home, and also kind of look at a big picture and see how can we build a culture, college-going culture for our parents. So that's something that we're developing. And I think ultimately the goal for us, for that 30%, 34% of parents who, like I said earlier, they're not typically involved in the education of their kids, is to see how we can have them be involved politically as well, because it is a group that definitely can have an impact in the way that our system works, or how they can demand services for their kids if they understand obviously the political and educational system. So we're doing quite a bit to make sure that we're meeting the needs of all our parents, and obviously it's a lot of work. Thank you much.
Hi, good evening. I think I'd like to highlight for Half Moon Bay High School our Kent Award-winning PLP program. I believe that it's our personal learning plan program that came out of the counseling department that is our strongest tie to our parent groups. It's a tie that binds our teachers to our students, students to teachers, to parents, to each other, to administration, to staff. And it's sort of been this seamless implementation of a 4-year program that has allowed our parents to find ways to get involved in our community and to support their children. In the 9th grade, every single parent meets with their counselor in the spring to set forth a 4-year plan. And out of this 4-year planning we've been doing for many years came knowledge from one of our new counselors who will be presenting later this evening, Sayuri Buritica, about a program called Naviance. It's a program often used in the private sector. It helps with college and career planning, as well as with looking at universities for best fit and matches. This plan that we brought in last year, which in the spring is all online, each student has an account. So of course, due to strains with funding, I went to the foundation with Sayuri and asked if the foundation, newly formed, that was our PAC and our academic fund program, has merged into our Half Moon High School Foundation, and they agreed to fund Naviance. And this partnership has continued with the foundation. Under new leadership, we have now fully partnered with the Athletic Boosters. So I'm continuing to find partnerships among our parent groups, within our parent groups, connected to our school community, to teachers and staff, which of course trickles down and provides best programs for our children. We are so fortunate to have so many comprehensive programs at the high school. So many that you read up here do come out of our parent groups, such as our local scholarship night is from our community members. They provide over $100,000 annually to our seniors for post-secondary opportunities. But if any of you attended the Black and Orange Ball, great event hosted by our Cougar Boosters. We're currently doing our first membership drive, hopefully to align better with the elementary schools in an ask instead of hosting more fundraisers on an already small community. So I'm really pleased with the partnerships that we've continued to be involved in. I am so thrilled that Cougar Boosters and the foundation really partner with the school, ask and hear what we need, and then partner with us in order to make it happen. Naviance is one example. So is Challenge Day. The foundation continues to support Challenge Day, both with funding as well as with volunteers. It takes a large amount of adult volunteers in order to pull off this wonderful event to promote empathy and respect on our campus and to help empower students to be the change that they want to see in the world. So I feel most fortunate for all of the partnerships we have with our families. I met with 2 members of the Review today, and we're going to now partner, hopefully, the paw print with the Review. And in my meeting, I became extremely emotional with Mr. Murray and Mr. Lambert as I spoke about the partnerships that we have. The foundation has been funding the print of our new newspaper out of our new journalism class. And I spoke about the power of working in a community school. And it's so unique to my experience as a principal, as an instructional leader, and I feel most fortunate because of the partnerships and because of all the work that it takes to run a community high school. So I could never say enough thanks to our parent groups for partnering with us and for being strong advocates on behalf of their children and all of our Coastside youth. So I'd like to introduce Raj Betcher, who's going to present on behalf of Pillar Cedos.
Good evening, everyone. Raj Betcher, principal of Pillar Cedos High School. At Pillar Cedos, we have a unique reality, and that is that a vast majority of our students historically have not had parental academic support throughout their Cabrillo career. And can I say one thing real quick? I am not a CUSD parent, former or current. However, I'm pretty sure about this. I'm the only administrator that is a former CUSD student. Yes, yes. Okay, so back to what I was talking about. Okay, so and at my short time at Pillar Cedos, a little bit over a quarter of a school year, I've found that the lack of support does not come from a lack of concern, but from a lack of skill sets and resources. A little bit that Lalo Lopez touched upon earlier. Besides the kind of parent conferences, phone calls, and kind of the baseline parent communication stuff, I want to talk to you about one thing that I'm doing at Pillar Cedos is home visits. So every other day, I visit a student, the home of a student, and speak with their parents. Each home visit is vastly different from the one 2 days before. Sometimes it's just dropping off a piece of paper, homework, a piece of paper that maybe a student forgot to sign. Sometimes it involves having a conversation sitting on a couch or at a dinner table. Sometimes it involves sharing dinner or coffee or a beverage with the parents. And sometimes it involves doing homework at a kitchen table with a student. I started doing the home visits at CUNY as a teacher. CUNY was solely for discipline purposes, and the difference here is that it's for, sometimes it is for discipline purposes, but it's also for just a positive rapport, creating a positive rapport with the parents. 100% of the homes that I've went to of Pillar Cedos parents have, I've been well received by the parents. They've been gracious and thankful, never defensive or hostile. One thing that got finalized this week is the last day before Thanksgiving break. So at Pillar Cedos, because of our small size, we have a unique opportunity to build a tight-knit community that includes the teachers, myself, the students, their siblings, and their parents. And so the last day before Thanksgiving break, 4 of the students who work in the food industry and restaurants on the coast side are going to, with the aid of one of their parents, going to cater a meal, tamales and al pastor tacos. And my friend who's a DJ, he DJs the dances at Cunha. He's going to DJ, and we're just going to eat and listen to music and nothing else. And that's it. Yeah. Okay. Yes. Yes. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Raj.
We also have other services that are completely connected to the schools, but not necessarily situated at one school site. And I'm going to ask Rosalva to come up and share with you a little bit about some of those programs that she provides through the Migrant Program.
Thank you and good night. My job with the district is similar to what Raj has described. We try to empower parents, we try to educate parents, we try to remove obstacles that they encounter with their education system. We help them a lot, but our role is more to teach them how to be resourceful and have the opportunities that they really need as parents to be able to continue the education of their students. My job especially is to recruit families in the program, and I do home visits, and I get to be invited to gatherings and dinners, and I get to see the reality that sometimes some of us don't get to see. It's challenging for them. Of course, the language is the big obstacle. Technology is the second biggest obstacle that they are facing nowadays. And their majority of the times when they try to participate is by sending them ready to learn to school. That's the highest level of parent engagement and participation that most of the times we end up seeing. So Migrant Program and other supplemental services that Elizabeth and her department are being able to provide are guiding parents, are getting those little amounts of funds that are still available in the public funds to provide that education and that connection with the academics and the students at school. One of the ways that we try to empower and educate families is through a roadmap. We call it Family Development Plan, that includes not just the academic success and the plan for the child to have success, but also to have goals for the family, such as learning the language, probably knowing about community services that they sometimes don't know. It's very similar to probably to what the high school does with the students as far as 4-year planning. We revise it every year. We set goals and we monitor the goals. We make them accountable, but we support them to obtain the goals. This process lasts 3 years, but we start little by little hoping that at the end they become a little more self-sufficient and feel a little more connected to the school. The other part that we try to implement is parent orientations. One thing is inviting a parent to a back-to-school night when they don't know exactly what they need to do in the back-to-school night. Another thing is inviting a parent to a teacher conference when they don't know exactly what to ask or what to look for. Those parent orientations that we create are guided to really emphasize that your role is very important. You are the #1 teacher, and we want you to know it and really believe it, that you are the #1. The language is not really an obstacle anymore, but we can empower you to obtain the services that your family and your student need within our community. The Parent Advisory Council is a kind of another parent board system that we have within the Migrant Program. I didn't see much about the ELAC and DLAC, but it's very similar to ELAC and DLAC, where we inform parents of policies of the school, such as attendance, behavior, zoning, why my child is all the way in Fairlawn View, why it's not here in Hatch, all the areas of, or the components that they need to know, because they don't come and sit in board meetings and they don't come and sit in site council meetings. We try to be the communicators and the guiding line so they can understand it and try to make the best decisions as far as, why is this happening? Why suspensions? Why expulsions? We also teach them the uniform compliance parent training. sorry, John, but we do that in Spanish and we do it really well. But we help them to, once again, be their own advocates and try to encourage them that they have a voice, even though they need some resources to communicate with their school and their school officials. We have weekly parent-child literacy, and that's for the little ones, preschool. Kate remembers probably our Little Listos class. And it's every Thursday. Every Thursday, we have it in Hatch. And it goes from raising a reader program to bilingualism, from playing an instrument, making books. So it's very broad, the topics that we address during those times. And we continue that with every generation that comes to Los Listos, because our goal is to have that connection and the first experience of active parenting at school. Being able to feel welcome in school, we start that in preschool. So when they go to your elementary, most of the times they're ready to volunteer, and they already know that they can be of some assistance in a classroom or outside a classroom. The program that we're trying to cook with CUNA is called ECAP, which is Early College Outreach Program, Parent Program. We had it for 7 years, and then we stopped because it became a funding issue, like anything else, right? But this is a 8 to 10 week course that starts from preschool all the way to going to college. It's all in Spanish, and they talk about everything, what a credit means, what a unit means in college, FAFSA, everything that you can imagine. It goes back to why it's important to be bilingual, why preschool is essential right nowadays, the importance of having books at home, reading in their own language. So it's a great program. When we had it at Hatch, CUNA, High School many years ago, we had up to 100 parents per session. Like I said, sadly went away because within our little migrant budget, we're not able to, either we pay for intervention teachers or we pay for another round of parenting classes. Parent empowerment courses, we try to partnerships due to the lack of funding with community agencies, Sheriff's Department, Peninsula Conflict Resolution, and we utilize them to kind of just train parents who are either in ELAC, either president, secretary, so they know exactly what the role and the expectations of their role and affiliations with this parent organizations are. But that's like the skeleton of the service that we try to provide, so that at least they can participate, be efficient in their roles in schools, be empowered, feel, stepping up to be site council members, just very active in the community. We, as a migrant, we still have the luxury of sending parents to a statewide training. It is still there. It's really powerful, but it just requires people traveling from here to LA, here Sacramento, and taking time off from work. So the more and more that we try to send more parents, the less we get a commitment, because they have to arrange for who's going to take care of the kids. I need to take time off, but they're really powerful. So to cure the problem of not being able to send that many parents, we had a regional parent training that is here in Santa Clara, the Office of Education, and we get about 20 parents every year that we provide transportation. It's a whole day session, and they see this, they hear and see the same topics, and they get back and they have to report to each of the schools, and it has been very powerful for them. We continue doing advocacy and try to provide services as much as we can. Every year that we open a rock, we find 7 more problems, and we try to cover it up and say only one at a time. But there's more to discover as long as that we have this wonderful community. I think we're in a good way to succeed as far as connecting families and enriching the parent component in our school district. Thank you for your time.
The last component that I wanted to share with you this evening would have been Edgar Villafana, who is our support provider from Star Vista. Star Vista is a social service agency across on the other side of the hill, and they actually provide mental health services to our families 0 through 5. They have parent groups that we run at Hatch. Mr. Ward is very generous in sharing space with us, and they meet weekly with parents and give them support strategies on how to raise their children and how to support them and how to get them involved in the schools. And then you can see a couple of the other support services that they provide. So I think we've given you sort of a broad view of what goes on in the school district as far as supporting parents, and I hope that that gives a good picture, and we're happy to entertain any questions.
Thank you. Thank you.
Are there any questions or comments from board members?
I have one comment. I've been on the board since 2006, and this is the first time that I can recall ever having a presentation like this before the board, and I appreciate it very much. I think it's enlightening. It's also heartwarming to know that so much good is going on in this district. I think we all kind of felt it, but to hear it articulated through the different voices, wonderful. Thank you.
Important. Thank you.
Thank you. Great, thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you, all of you. That brings us to item 11B, receive the results and analysis of data collected for strategic planning by Public Consulting Group.
I guess I can't start by moving to adjourn, huh?
Nice try.
Just give me a moment.
Tony, do you want to do an intro here, or is he?
I'll do it. I can introduce. Oh, well, it's up to you.
Whatever.
Go ahead. You're there, you've got the mic.
I've got the mic. I've got the floor. Couple things. I do have paper for you to read, and I will give this big one. So I'm about to hand out a draft document, and I apologize that it's still just in draft form, but there's still some tinkering to be done to make sure that all of the data are represented appropriately. But what I do have for each of you to read are the introductory and the data analysis section. So it's about 30 pages, so it's not like it's short. But I'll give this one to Tony. And what we'll do is we will put the larger document online for public review starting sometime next week. And that will include all of the data, but this is for each of you to take a look at.
And we need to provide some of these for public members now, this one, right?
What's that?
Do we
No,
need?
because it will be posted.
Oh, okay. But if we're getting it, do we need to provide a few in the back?
This is our first view of it, and then it goes on the website tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Patty.
So the comment was just made about trying not to lift rocks because you expose all sorts of things that you don't necessarily want to do or see or that you could fund. But the truth of the matter is we were essentially, PCG was essentially brought in to lift all those rocks. My name is Steve Cutno, and I appreciate you giving me a few minutes this evening after the last 12 weeks of gathering data with the specific purpose of trying to identify what the priorities are for members of the community. And by members of the community, I mean each of you who participated. I mean the about 12 focus groups and the hundreds of people who were involved in that way, the over 600 people who submitted surveys, and the students with whom we've had an opportunity to meet as well. And so they each expressed an opinion or voiced ideas about considerations they'd like the district to be working towards for the future. And the way the process works, and I actually won't look at my notes so much, the way the process works is essentially we gather all of those data and we then categorize it. We categorize it based on what emerges. So using what was called grounded theory in the 60s. So looking at the data points, what theme do we think this represents? We started with about 14 themes. We narrowed it down to, we collapsed it to about 9, and those are represented in the document that I just handed out to you. Those themes include addressing, and I'll just read it out quickly so that the audience could hear and appreciate it, and I'm going to relate it to some of the things that have already been discussed this evening by both the parents and by the presentation on community engagement. So the 9 themes are addressing academic achievement and results, character education, communication, community engagement, organizational leadership, professionalism, resources, safe environment, and technology. Now, these themes are not presented in any specific way other than alphabetical. That's the only way to give it sort of a fair representation. But each of these themes is then described in some detail with regard to what that theme has meant and what are some of the things we heard from the community either through the survey, through the focus groups, or through the interviews. One of the pieces that is yet to be incorporated, but is incorporated thematically, is also the school capacity profile, which I failed to mention. That was our work with each of the leadership teams from each of the schools. If it's appropriate, I'd like to just spend a few minutes discussing each of these themes and what they mean. Before I do that, I do want to point out this is not a strategic plan. This is not even this is the beginning of a strategic plan because it gives you some guidance as to where people are thinking you need to go. But even this still needs to be vetted, and I'll talk about next steps after I've had a chance to review the themes. The first theme about addressing academic achievements and results has a little bit to do with feeding the intellectual appetite of all students. There's a perception that too many of the resources in Cabrillo Unified School District are either spent on low-performing students or high-performing students, but many students in the middle are getting lost. So many people discussed creating a system that serves all students better. But they also recognize the need to address the needs of the English language learners. So you have a number of different things that emerge as a result in terms of focusing on academic achievement, which is that not everybody is on the same pathway. And perhaps it was stated best by one of the students at the high school, at Half Moon Bay High School, who said, "Hold us all to high standards. Just recognize that we're not all going to achieve them at the same pace." And I think that's an important thing because that's a very different way to be thinking about school and education. And it's somewhat directional and related to this theme because it helps us to understand ways in which we might address the differences that students have in interests and academic performance. It's worth noting, because it's also in this theme, that one of the programs that gets high praise is the immersion program at Hatch Elementary. One person stated it's like a private school education within a public school. Now, that cuts both ways because it's also an area that is of great concern. Despite the comments above, and I'm reading here directly, a number of people expressed concern that the program is not inclusive and in fact creates the sense that there are 2 independent programs running at Hatch, one for the immersion students and one for the other students. This is, again, not necessarily, this is only meant to give us some information about how you might move forward. And some of it might be to include or expand the immersion program. Moving on to character education and development, and of course, you will all have an opportunity to read this, as will the entire community, and to make sure that the voices have been represented accurately. One of the favorite things I heard, one of the things that I heard that is among my most favorite is we want to support students to become excellent people. And I really thought that captured the notion of what it means to be successful. And so this character education and development is truly about creating the behaviors and modeling those behaviors and expectations around how we expect people to behave with one another or towards one another in the school environment. This particular theme also will be related to the safety theme, which I'll talk about briefly in just a moment. But one of the things that is addressed in this particular theme is building self-confidence, self-awareness, and building a sense of civic responsibility both to the individual and to the school community in which they are learning. The next theme, and this relates a lot to the presentation we just heard on engagement, and we separated out communication and engagement because we think that they do appear rather distinctively, because and both actually relate to both the community as well as internal and staff. In the communication one, you'll see that there's references to lacking common terminology, or even creating understanding about the meanings when common terminology is used. I'm on page 15 if you're trying to follow along. I use this section also to raise another issue that is touched on tangentially throughout this meeting, but also throughout the community, which is there is a language issue that we try to address in our survey. We try to make the survey available in both English and Spanish, and I would say that we failed to do it very well in Spanish. And that is an underlying issue around communications overall. It's not that we failed to attempt to write it in Spanish, but we failed to do it in such a way that was that reached out to the Spanish community in a successful way. And to give you a sense of what I'm talking about, there were somewhere in the neighborhood of 640 surveys. Somewhere in the neighborhood of 610 were filled out or completed by people who identified themselves as Caucasian. Of the Spanish surveys, there were only about 25 that were filled out. And we've received a lot of feedback over the course of the survey being up and available. And some of it was about the quality of the translation. Some of it was about the literacy ability of the people to whom it was aimed or at whom it was aimed. And it underlies, it is a component of the communication problem, which is recognizing that there's a good percentage of the community for whom doing that level of translation is still insufficient. Whether it's PCG doing it or you doing it. So looking at and trying to address the way in which you might identify or you might communicate with the Spanish-speaking community is certainly an underlying issue. I'm going to jump to community engagement and talk just briefly about, because most of what needed to be said about community engagement was said, and I want to apologize if anything in the community engagement actually contradicts what was said, especially as it relates to some of the activities that are going on in your schools, because some of this was data gathered before some of those activities happened, so people may not have yet had those engagements. But one of the things I talk about in community engagement, or in this section, is moving community engagement beyond just sort of informing the community, but engaging them in meaningful partnerships so that it could also be more inclusive of a relationship with the families and with the community and with the businesses. I'm just looking quickly at what I highlighted. I put one element of transportation into the community engagement piece, and I'm going to talk about transportation again in a moment, and all the families that talked about transportation have left. But I do want to say one thing. One way in which to get community members to events is to provide transportation. It's a challenge. We heard it's a challenge just for the students. It's a challenge for many families to get to these events. And since many of these events are happening in the evening, if there's a way to include or use the buses, that might be a way, or to create some sort of network online, social media, that would help people to find ways or means to get to the to various community events. The next theme was organizational leadership, and I'm going to read the theme because I think it's important. Currently, Cabrillo Unified School District is functioning as a system of schools and not a school system. And I think we heard a little bit of that today in the presentation from each of the school principals when they were talking about the types of activities that are going on. They're not necessarily coordinated, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but without a level of coordination, we don't get to any efficiencies in thinking or talking about community engagement. We are not doing all that we can. And here the interesting thing is that many of the school personnel, the professionals, talk about looking for direction and are concerned about the overabundance of mandates, that every mandate creates a ripple effect throughout the district without regard for what the various roles and responsibilities are of the individuals who have to implement those mandates. So while the unique identities of each school is good, it has to fall within a united framework of what the school district should be. So one of the things to consider is sort of models of adaptive leadership, where it is, or distributed leadership, where it is involving and inviting people to participate in solving the difficult problems, in uncovering or lifting up those rocks, but together finding ways to solve the problem. So that not one single administrator or one single teacher or one single staff member is left to resolve an issue on their own. On the notion of professionalism, I think we all know how dedicated the staff are. If I'm sure you all know it, you heard it this evening. You heard about the wonderful things that many of the teachers and professionals are doing. But there's more that needs to be done or can be done to keep them motivated and to help move the organization forward. Increasing collaboration, improving recruiting, hiring, onboarding, supporting, and retaining the best people possible. And right now, it's very much a culture of waiting for something to be told to them and then doing it. So essentially working from this notion that there's direction and answer somewhere above at the teacher or staff level, when in fact they want to organize around making and solving problems. One of the interesting things that just came up as you were talking about community engagement, and I think it's interesting because it comes up here too, which is the teachers are looking for direction. Because while all of those activities are happening and you're making every effort to engage the community, many of them are not feeling very successful at it. Well, I shouldn't say many. Some people express they're not feeling successful at it because, and I think it was just pointed out, the notion that someone comes to a parent-teacher conference but has no idea of what to expect or doesn't know why they have to be at a parent-teacher conference. So the teachers, too, are looking for direction. The teachers are sort of saying, what do we do, or how do we do this, or how do we reach out and make sure that these people are, our parents are involved appropriately. And it's not reflected here, but one of the ideas that we shared with a group of parents and a group of teachers was sort of developing aspirational portfolios. Because the truth of the matter is every child has dreams. Every parent has dreams for their child. Why not start at kindergarten and map out those dreams? So at kindergarten, you might dream of being a firefighter, but by the time you're 4th grade, you might dream of being a doctor. And by the time you're in 10th grade, you might dream of being a great novelist. But whatever it is, that you have a point, you have something to talk about specifically with your teacher, with the parent, and with the student, giving it, centralizing it around a purpose. The other thing that comes up under the professionalism theme is the staff that aren't teachers, or the staff that I would say are not the instructional staff, who describe themselves as the ghost employees. These are people who go unnoticed until an issue arises either at the building or centrally. And these are people who want to be involved and want to contribute much more. And so, looking at ways to ensure that they are part of any conversation related to the school. And that also comes up, again, in that particular group, and addressing that need comes up in the safety theme. under resources, I talk a little bit about the financial uncertainty that every district in the country is facing. And of course, there's always a sense of need within school districts. I could come in tomorrow with hundreds of millions of dollars. It just would not be enough. There's always more that you're going to need. And the issue here is, and it's in this section, is that the complexity of school budgeting is certainly not easy, but it's not made any easier when there's a lot of what I would call off-the-books funding. When, and forgive me, I'm going to pick on Half Moon Bay High School for a second. When you talked about raising funds to do things that really need to be done in the operation of schools, it creates a real challenge to ensure the continuity of those programs, right? That puts in this particular case, a school building administrator in the role of constantly having to raise money on top of having to operate a school. So I think that there are creative pathways to centralize and work together to look at the ways in which money is spent, but also to look at what programs you consider to be essential for your schools so that not every school is running around also having to raise money. And it also requires, because there is sort of a wish list in here, but I point out that, it's easy to put together a wish list, but you can't do everything. And part of what you have to do, and part of what the parents who left have to hear, is you have to make tough choices. You have to balance out what it is the priorities of the school system are that are going to meet the goals that you establish, whether they be instructional goals, safety goals, goals about supporting the teachers, and those are all very, very difficult. The eighth theme is creating the safe environment. And here's where, had those parents stayed around long enough, they would have heard that, in fact, we did hear that busing is an issue. And we heard it's an issue for two reasons. The overall goal is obviously creating a safe environment for students. Number of things arise in that goal. One is transportation, ensuring the safe transportation of students to and from school, and ensuring that they are not, as one parent pointed out, left walking on the side of the road because they're dependent upon public transportation. There's dangers, there's tardiness, but there's also this notion, and I don't know that any of the parents brought it up, that it creates greater separation from, instead of integration, between the communities that are bused into communities that of students who are either carpooled or walked or biked to school. There's a sense that there is difference, and so it's having, I think, in some ways, the opposite effect of what people had anticipated. The other thing, obviously, is looking at the campuses and talking to some of the parents, is the open campuses, the breezeways, the facilities themselves make it very easy for anyone to walk onto the campuses. And just over the hill, to use your nomenclature, I believe it was yesterday or a few days ago, there was an incident in which someone arrived at a campus, actually went to the office, and got the pass, and then wandered around school. And I only know about it because I watched the news this morning, and they had the videotape because they're trying to now identify this guy. So it is an issue that I know you are addressing, and I think I even put it here, that it is part of your facilities plan. The last issue that I just want to bring up under safety, and it also falls under sort of character development, is this notion that there is bullying, overt expression of sexuality, and not necessarily in a positive way, at the middle school and the high school. And whether or not that's truth or rumor, it's certainly perception among some of the families or some of the community who are sending their children there. And so some people have advocated going the more traditional path, creating more rigorous punishments that don't send the kids home because they think that actually rewards those children for misbehavior, but providing them, giving them work to do on campus to help add and make the campus beautiful. Some go so far as to suggest, and I know that the students aren't going to like it, but to suggest that uniforms would be appropriate. I don't think that that's necessarily where you'd go, but I'm just reporting out the data. The last theme is around technology. I quickly ducked out of the room when all the parents got up to leave, because the thing that struck me wasn't that they all came to talk about the busing issue. What struck me was when the last presenter, I believe her name was Lisa, said they used social media to mobilize today. And I was curious to know what social media they had used and how they had used it. But essentially they used the usual suspects: Facebook, Twitter, the local news feed, and they quickly got, the gentleman who I guess organized it, quickly got a lot of responses, far more than the people who were here. And I think that we have entered the digital age. I know the school district has adopted and purchased a lot of equipment, including tablets. They're certainly purchasing, you're certainly in the process of purchasing hardware in order to deliver the new assessments for the Common Core state standards. But there's a concern that, and this is across the different groups and the different people that we talk to, that the technology is used at appropriate times for appropriate purposes, and recognizing that not all people will use technology in the same way. And so that brings us to the end of sort of the 9 themes. I know you will take a closer look at it, but before I open it up for questions, let me tell you what our next steps are, because I will come back to Cabrillo in December. I've arranged with Superintendent Rourke to be back on December 10th in the evening with the subcommittee that has currently been focused on the strategic plan, to go through each of these 9 elements and have a working session to identify what goals might be established to address them, and recognizing that not all of them will be addressed. Some of them can be addressed very quickly, and some of them are going to be much more complex issues. But what would the goals be, and what would they look like? And then have an opportunity for you to consider pathways forward from that. I'll take any questions.
Great, thank you.
I'll just make a comment. I think we've had a huge gap from a leadership perspective of a lack of data and a lack of hard facts to be able to plan effectively and decide what we want our strategic plan to look like and set goals and so forth. So I'm excited, obviously, just getting this at a first blush, but I think it allows us to be honest with ourselves, right? There's a lot of survey responses, a lot of people interviewed, people were able to speak anonymously, so it allows us to get closer to what's really happening and then respond as and prioritize, so that's exciting. And that's it. I think this is the start of what this board has been talking about for a while, about the next generation. So thanks for the efforts around this.
Question. Will we receive the metrics on the survey results?
Yeah.
Details?
Yes. The details are actually in the back of the version that, and what's not yet in that, but will be as soon as we clean it up, are also the open-ended responses.
Mm-hmm. Great.
And that's the item that will be available to the public online on the
Electronically.
website?
Yes. Yeah. We've always promised transparency into both the process and the outcome, so.
So the next step is just going to be the subcommittee, or that'll be a special board meeting, or what?
The December 10th is the subcommittee.
Well, the steering committee, and
for the strategic planning.
we recommended that it be included, that some additional staff be invited, because they're going to be the ones who live it every day. Yeah. And it'd be good to have their perspective it's basically a brainstorming session. And from there, then it becomes, I will give some guidance, what you might do next, in terms of taking those and turning them into SMART goals, which ones you want to attend to in the next few years, which ones you want to hold off on, and then developing action plans. Because the greater the specificity around all of that, the more likely people will be successful implementing it.
And I think the plan of action is that subcommittee then recommends those SMART goals to the board, and then once those are discussed and approved by the board, they then go back to that committee or a similar committee to create those action plans that then also would be approved by the board as a part of the strategic plan.
On the next report that you present, could we have the survey questions the way that they were provided in the survey, embedded into this?
Oh, yeah, and it's in the appendix.
Of the larger
appendix.
Yeah, you could, and Tony, you could pass that around. I mean, I'm not I mean, it's there, it's just, it's not yet a complete document. What it's, I don't know if you want it also, I didn't include the Spanish version, the Spanish wording of that, we could do that as well, if that's helpful.
Yeah, I just want to commend Steve and your partners at PCG for the outreach and the amount of opportunity that you gave for the public and for staff and all the different focus groups and the surveys to speak and to gather that data. And I think that, hearing back from different folks who were in those different parts of the process, you were really open and created kind of a different way of looking at what we're doing. And I think that was very effective. And I appreciate that this is as Rob said, kind of the beginning of the process where we take this information and right now it's the data, it's the feedback, which is super important, but then it's kind of what we do with that next in terms of our community, our staff, our teachers, our administrators, and how we move forward. And so I also appreciate your perspective on that in terms of clearing off the plate and kind of trying to think about starting over and identifying what are priorities for all of us and how we move forward with these things. I think it was exciting, so I'm looking forward to that process.
One of the things that I appreciated was our phone conversation that we had. I felt valued, and I felt like it was, these were great questions, thought-provoking questions. And I also appreciated when I attended at the high school, one of the community events, just your style, the way that you brought forward what we were doing. What I was, I guess what I was surprised by and taken back by was the lack of community participation at the event. And I know you hosted a second community event. I'm curious how the numbers kind of compared in that forum. I know the evening I was there, Kate and Dr. Rourke was there, but there must have been no more than maybe 20 people in that audience. I'm curious how the second one convened.
It was similarly attended, about 20. I have my theories that, when people are relatively happy or when people don't understand why they've been invited out, those are two reasons why people might not come out. I do also think that there is an intimidation factor for a segment of the community that does not feel comfortable. We did have we added actually, one of the things I should point out is we added a number of focus groups, including the building level administrators. We added a focus group of just Spanish-speaking parents. And in the course of the focus group with the Spanish-speaking parents, I had one parent who said that her husband would never come to an event even if he knew there was a translator. So there is, this speaks to that communication and community engagement theme. And I think, hearing some of the things that the school principals were just presenting in terms of trying to overcome those issues is very impressive. But it is certainly one of the things I think that contributes to so few people coming out.
So with respect to the surveying you did, that you had 600 responses, that was email? What was it, mail? How was the survey delivered?
It was delivered, well, it was made available in hard copy here in the district. So each of the school buildings did receive a hard copy of the survey. There was hard copy here at the central office, and the ELAC-DLAC coordinators also were given a number of copies to distribute. But it was primarily taken on SurveyMonkey.
So representation was 30% of the possible respondents, or 50, or 80, or just roughly? I don't know what's typical, and I just was curious. It's one of the metrics I was.
Yeah, I actually don't know, because I didn't, because anyone in the community could have taken it, so we would have to do the calculation against the entire population. Sometimes we just use this, we'll just look at, let's say, the teacher population, because we know what that population is, and I don't have that number off the top of my head.
Do you feel that you sampled as effectively as possible
I think we attempted to sample as effectively as possible. I think it's probably like one of the things that I say in the document is I think that there's an overrepresentation of those people who want to be heard. Those people will always be heard, and they'll always be the overrepresented voices. And as long as you recognize that, I think that it's okay.
Was at the various school sites was a letter provided to parents announcing that the survey was available both in a hard copy as well as on survey
Multiple times.
Multiple times.
And phone calls.
And phone calls
Phone
to
calls
us,
to parents.
robocalls, yeah.
Okay.
I just also want to remind everyone that, so now this document that's just in purely draft form is going to be online for 2 weeks, and PCG is...
3 weeks. We're actually going to have, it's actually going to be 3 weeks because of the Thanksgiving holiday. We'll leave it online for 3 weeks. Well, you could leave it online for as long as you want. It's
No, but
yours,
for
but we'll
3
take
weeks-
feedback for 3 weeks.
Right, and PCG will actually be taking feedback from other community members, ones who've already responded, just kind of trying to get a sense of how accurately people feel this represents what they have said. So I really appreciate that. I think that there's even more opportunity for the community to provide that input, the whole community.
What's the feedback mechanism?
As Freya was saying it, I was thinking we haven't actually made the arrangements for the feedback, so I will talk to Tony about how we want to do that, if we want an email here, or we want to set up, we could use my email address, or we could, what PCG typically does is we set up a dummy email address. So
Yeah,
that'll take a couple days.
I hope you can make it as simple as possible,
Yeah.
accessible as possible.
Right.
Thank you.
So any further questions or comments?
No.
Now can I move to adjourn now? Just kidding.
I wish, there's more. Thank you very much, Steve. We
You're welcome.
appreciate it, all your hard work. That moves us to item 11C, receive the report for the Measure E Parcel Tax Citizens Oversight Committee, Year 3 Annual Report.
Yes, it's my pleasure to introduce to the board Susie Tempesta, who is the Vice Chair of the Measure E Parcel Tax Citizens Oversight Committee. Susie's here to provide the board with an overview of the work of the COC, Citizens Oversight Committee, on Measure E, as well as to formally present the Year 3 report.
Great. Thank you, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Tony. Good evening. My name is Susie Rose Tempesta, and I am the Vice Chair of the Measure E Parcel Tax Citizens Oversight Committee. I want to say how happy I am to be here tonight, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to provide you the Measure E Parcel Tax Citizens Oversight Committee Year 3 Annual Report. The Oversight Committee works together throughout the year and takes its duties very seriously by looking at all of the information provided and discussing point by point. We have had professionals give presentations to augment our knowledge about regulations and financial matters. As previously mentioned, we meet throughout the year, usually 3 to 4 times, and look at detailed reports to ensure that Measure E parcel tax funds are appropriately spent. We met last spring to review a draft of the expenditure report, with several follow-up meetings this fall in order to pass the annual resolution and to develop the annual report, which is presented this evening. The Citizens Oversight Committee has verified that the district has spent Measure E parcel tax funds in a manner that is consistent with the ballot language and with its promises to the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Susie.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. That brings us to item 12, communications. Any desires to start one end or the other?
Yeah, I'll start. I'm going to refer to something on here, so let me just unlock it. So I came here tonight feeling pretty excited. It's actually been a really busy month, and I got a few things I'll talk to, but really the reason I'm excited, and it was really mirrored here tonight, was the will of this community to ensure quality education for our kids is just tremendous. And in the community, it's certainly the parents, it's the staff, it's retirees who volunteer, of course, it's our teachers, and everybody involved. It's really stunning and empowering to see what we can do. So, and again, just the presentations about what's happening at each site just strengthen that feeling. So what I've been up to and doing that in partnership with Freya and Tony and Crystal, one of the things we did was go to each of the schools. I think we just have Kings Mountain left to talk to the PTOs about the potential for the renewal of Measure E of the parcel tax. So the district, the board's been considering for the last few months whether to pursue a renewal. You know, the challenge, just to remind the community, is that Measure E brings in $1.7 million of our $26 million budget, and we need it to continue in order to be able to provide a quality education to the children that we all want. We have to decide by next March whether or not we're going to go for that renewal. The reason I was excited because each of these PTO meetings were packed. I was at the El Granada. We were all at the El Granada this week, and there was probably 18 people there, and there was probably as many kids. People, you know, have to give up their evenings with their families, but they're bringing them there just to give back, and so that was nice. And I think the resonance we heard through all these sessions was just like the survey data that we received. There is a will of the community to continue forward with the renewal of this, and we're starting to build a groundswell of people who are interested in getting involved, and we're getting the word out, and the PTOs are helping us with that. So that was great. Second thing that made me feel excited was, and you meet new people all the time, and I was talking to a community member, Ashwini Gillen, who's involved with Bright, which I'm going to go to my phone to, which is a nonprofit organization that partners with the high school. And Bright stands for, bear with me, Bringing Real Incentive to Education. And they partner with Allison and her staff to identify students who may not be thinking about going to college for a myriad of reasons, their background, financial reasons, and so forth. And Ashwini and her partner, Anne, have garnered funds to provide scholarship for these kids, and as well as to provide a mentor in partnership with the counseling staff at the high school. And she shared with me 2 examples of students who were not on a college path. One gal who wanted to be a singer, and another gentleman who was, tasked to be, he was thinking about being a mechanic. And now the gal is thinking about biotech, and the gentleman is thinking about becoming a counselor. So I mean, complete change of mindset. So I just want to call out the impact that just a couple of folks can have, and of course they're trying to broaden it, which is great. But again, super exciting, cool stuff. So I wanted to call that out. And then lastly, I'm super excited about, when we're going to get to that, is the approval of Intro to Engineering. I mean, I just want to compliment the staff on reality-based education that exposes kids early about potential careers that are out there. So that's why I'm excited. There's all kinds of good stuff going on. So thanks to everybody.
Yeah, good. Thanks, Rob. Michael, you good? Kurt, Kate?
I just would like to give a shout out, as Rob says, to the CUNY staff and to the high school staff. They allowed me to visit this past week, and I continue to be impressed at the dedication of our teachers. Many of them came in to say hello, but scurried back to their classrooms because during their lunch hour they were with students. And their enthusiasm for their students, the kids are fabulous. There are some issues surrounding, but the kids, this time with the kids are great, and I'd like to say thank you to Kurt Murray and Christina Yakeley for helping me with my arrangements. It was a good visit. And to you, Kurt.
Kurt, anything? Do you have any comment?
I just have one comment, and that is that one of the messages in the first presentation about all the different activities we have to engage parents and students was the theme running through of how important and valued the community approach to after-school programs and outreach towards parents is. It's such an important mechanism for bringing our community together. It's been more effective in the past, and it's suffered from funding issues, and this is tragic. This is something we really need to turn around, and I hope that we can figure out ways to do that, because it's a very, very powerful mechanism, and it touches the lives of everybody in the community. And it's community schooling is not just something to say, it's something that is a living body, and I would hope we can continue to regain what we once had and go farther in that. That's a hope and a desire that we can make that happen in this community.
Great. I just want to echo not being quite as involved, but definitely involved in the strategic plan, or in the planning for the parcel tax renewal. And I think it's something that is definitely taking a lot of our time and energy trying to get that feel from the community. And we're very excited and hopeful that the community will want to step up and partner with us in renewing Measure E. As we heard tonight from Susie, the valuable things that it currently funds, keeping class sizes small, counselors at the high school and middle school, and all sorts of other valuable things. So that's definitely something that's been keeping us busy. And also the strategic planning process is very exciting, and I'm excited to be on that committee to kind of move that forward and figure out a roadmap for that one. And then mostly I've been involved with a little shout out for Fairlawn View. It's Continent Day tomorrow, and we're doing Europe. So one of the classes is France, and I've learned all about sunflower production and created sunflowers with the third graders and the second graders, and poppies. So that's been really fun. So that's that fun being with the kids in the classroom part of the education. So.
One other quick comment. Lalo, the shift to scheduled conferences, the 2013 people, that was an awesome and successful project. So thank you versus the old way. Keep it up.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right.
So Williams will get the credit for that.
Please pass that along. Thank you.
Student board member?
Okay. So since last time we met, homecoming was just about to start. So that's over with. Seniors are currently in first place. Spirit actually this year was incredible compared to the past years. We had a really good attendance at the dance, which we've never had. As leadership right now, we're looking over the bylaws and trying to re-emphasize them and try to see what our actual role as a student body is at the school. Out of leadership is, I've had a freshman this morning. She's in the class I TA for, and she's excited about the Avid Google trip tomorrow. She was so excited about her dressing up in the skirt, because Miss Silvestri went in and told them about how they're supposed to dress. I also gave you guys a copy of the Pop Print. That's student run by journalism, and it's being well received by the whole school. Everyone's excited, and they're really cool.
Okay. Actually, that was my one last comment. I found this yesterday at La Petite when I was there with my daughter and read the whole thing cover to cover. I loved it, so I forgot I was going to say that. So thank you.
Brenda, can I ask you a question? So when you say spirits greatly improved, can you tell us a little bit more about that?
So we have more student involvement, but there's still some classes that are lacking it. Yet the class presidents were trying to go up to them and have them participate. Like the pumpkin carving contest, we had the class presidents go search for their pumpkin carvers, and we actually had it well attended. We had people around it, and surprisingly, was it the freshmen won first place for that one.
Great, thank you.
What about the dance turnout? Why was that better, do you think?
Because personally, leadership thinks that it was because we had the homecoming king and queen announcement, and that wasn't done before.
At the dance?
Yeah,
Good.
I was at the dance.
Made them wait.
Good. Way to do it.
Oh, and they're also excited for the Terra Nova game tomorrow, school game.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Yes, I have 3 quick items. First off, I'm very excited and pleased to make the announcement that Kings Mountain received exciting news this week. They are notified by the California Department of Education that they are eligible to apply for the 2014 California Distinguished School Award. However, the deadline is up and coming very quickly on December 16th, and it's an extremely rigorous application. So there are several folks who are now probably at this minute very busy preparing the application. Just to remind the board that Kings Mountain won the award, Distinguished School Award, in 2008. The second item is that CEF, Cabrillo Education Foundation, focus areas for next school year are science, literacy, and music, and CEF modified its allocation process for next year. They developed an application with a deadline that was recent, October 31st, and required the prior approval of both the principal and myself before CEF would consider the request for funding. We had 17 applications submitted. 16 were submitted by schools, and one was submitted by a community organization. I personally had the opportunity to read every one of those, and they were all amazing, thoughtful, and clearly would benefit our students. And CEF has very difficult decisions ahead of themselves. They'll be letting us know sometime around late January to early March, kind of a wide window there in terms of when the decision will be made. But I have to say that they can't get it wrong. There's so many good opportunities there that things are going to, whatever they fund is going to have tremendous benefit. And the final item relates to Measure S. We recently developed a process to allocate schools the interest that's earned from Measure S to purchase school furniture. Last year, as you know, we sold bonds in mid to late October, and those dollars, for the most part, have sat in the county treasury and earned a little over $75,000 in interest. And so we are turning over the interest earned on those bond funds to schools so that they can begin to replace furniture, classroom furniture in our schools. We're using a process by where the schools have until the end of the calendar year before we go to winter break to let the fiscal department know what it is that they're interested in purchasing. Then the fiscal department will do the shopping for them and ensure by the size of the purchases that we can acquire the best deals using our collective purchasing power. We don't know for sure, but at this point we project with a full year of earning interest and about $16.5 million still unexpended, that will earn about $105,000 during the current year, and that will be allocated for schools for the same purpose in the 14-15 year.
So does the interest have the exact same guidelines as the bond dollars as far as categories that the funds can be used, or how does that work?
It's a little looser.
Okay.
It needs to be, the dollars need to be expended in a way that support the way that they're used, that the bond funds are used. So the purchase of furniture is an appropriate way to utilize those funds, and it's not bond dollars, which our community pays back over a 25-year period. It's interest earned. There's no payback on that. It's real dollars. So it's an appropriate way to utilize these funds. And for example, we couldn't use them for salaries, ongoing salaries, and general fund kinds of purposes. But yeah, it is pretty narrow in terms of how we can utilize them.
So we have 7 sites. How are you divvying up $75,000? They picking straws or something?
Yes, I'm there. Whoever brings me the tastiest bagel gets preferential treatment. No, actually, because we have 2 small school sites, we started. Crystal and I met and determined the allocation. We set a base amount of $1,000, and so that because knowing with Pillarcitos, serves 64 kids, including the alternative students. Kings Mountain, 72 students. we know that they would receive very few dollars if it were just a per student allocation. So we set that base. And then doing a little bit of research on the cost of furniture. The cost of furniture for high school students is about 35 to 40% more to put a student in a desk than it is at the elementary school. So we looked at the average per student of what was left was $19.25. So we upped it up $2 to $21.25 for high school per student, left it at $19.25 for the middle school, and then we'll calculate it out. Elementaries are receiving an additional $17.95 per student. So it is a little bit bifurcated.
And the directive is desks.
The directive is furniture for the school. So
Could it be carpeting?
Tables, chairs?
No, carpeting will all be purchased under Measure S bond funds. This is furniture.
Okay.
Classroom furniture, could be furniture for staff rooms, libraries, whatever the need of the site is.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. I'd like to bring a discussion item to the board just really quickly to see whether or not we would like to, there was a motion on the table maybe to move back to our agenda adoption, to amend our agenda and put 15A, the discussion item of the proposed courses for the high school. Elizabeth has suggested this now so that the high school teachers who have to get up and teach a bunch more high school students tomorrow could do their presentation now. Would anybody interested in a motion of such a nature?
Make a motion to make that agenda change.
Okay, second? Okay. All in favor? Do we need a new motion now for the agenda change?
That was just what was made.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And so we'll move 15, which one is it? 15A to right now, in between item 12 and 13.
Thank you very much. I don't often ask to change that, but I saw our teachers waning in the back of the room back there. Sayuri did smile when she heard what Brenda said about the students knowing how to dress and how excited they are for that AVID trip tomorrow. They're going to Google? That's amazing. So I would like to invite Jarrett Dooley, our Curriculum and Instruction Assistant Principal from Half Moon Bay High School, to come up and share with you some incredible new proposals about courses that our staff is excited about including in our course catalog.
Thank you, and good evening. I'm going to be as brief as possible so I can get my rock star teachers to sleep, especially Anthony. I'm just going to actually introduce them and bring them up and have them give a brief overview, and feel free to ask questions after they give a little brief overview. You guys have the new course forms included, so hopefully you got some good questions for them. Anthony Agundas is going to discuss our Introduction to Engineering course up first.
Anthony, I'm excited about this.
It's all right. I'm running on fumes anyway because I was up late last night. I am the shop teacher at the high school, and when I first got here 2 years ago, I was asked, is this everything you expected? Because I moved 500 miles to be here. And my answer was, I didn't know what to expect, but I knew what I was bringing. And while that might sound like a good answer, it's actually the truth. I brought a guitar making class to the high school. We now make guitars at the high school. I was asked to go to a STEM conference at the district office or the county office last year. And I looked around and I, watched what they presented, and I thought, there has to be something here for me that I can do. And the engineering aspect kind of hit me in the face because I spent 20 years in manufacturing before I came back to education. So knowing that, I'd always taken designs and put them into manufacturing. I wrote assembly instructions on how to put things together. So I was really just taking someone else's ideas and putting them in work. Now, The other aspect of that is designing things, obviously. So I never really ever had to design things except for tooling, jigs, and stuff like that to build things. So this really gives me an opportunity to work with kids and expose them to a new aspect that they may never even considered as a career, which is engineering. Now, this program, Project Lead the Way, is pretty widespread where I came from. I came from a high school district of 10 high schools, and almost every high school had this program. I came up here, and when I started looking into it, I found that one high school close by had it. There's more high schools in the peninsula that have it, but the closest one in San Mateo County was Woodside High School. There's no others. So I thought, well, why can't we be number 2? So I looked into it. I actually went and visited Woodside High School, talked to that teacher, saw what he was doing, and I thought, yeah, this would be a really good program for our school. And what he was doing, he kind of ran it in conjunction with a robotics class. Well, I didn't really want to get into robotics because I've seen robotics classes before and it takes a lot of work, and I'm already doing a lot of work. So I decided that I would bring in more of a manufacturing aspect to it. So the beginning is the introduction course where students are presented with problems and they have to come up with a design to solve that problem. There's a lot of units that they go through. Their assessment is done online. Core standards have already been implemented into this program a year ago, so that's already there. The curriculum is already written, and it is it can be articulated with San Jose State University. I chose not to go that far because I really want to retain some of our traditional shop classes, and the reason that I want to do that is because there are students at our school that are not going to college. So I really want to address those students as well as students that may want to go into engineering. So for that reason, I chose to introduce 3 classes, and the first one being the introduction class, the second one would be principles of engineering, the third class would be computer integrated manufacturing. So with those 3 classes, I feel that it would give students a real strong hold on careers to go into and go to college and really, fill in, especially since you go on the other side of the hill and there's all these firms that do this. I mean, they design things and build things, and and this is like the heartland of our technology right here on the other side of the hill. Now, when I worked in manufacturing, I heard about the Silicon Valley. Never once went there. Never once. But I worked in defense contracting for 10 years. So all this high technology hardware that we have in our military today, we built pretty much 30 years ago. So there's a lot newer things out there that kids can learn. With this class, they will be presented with things that they have to design. There's a whole outline for the whole class. It's all laid out. The hours spent on each section. The university will put me through training so that I will be able to teach this class. And actually, the overview that I'm giving you is just from my perspective because I haven't gone through the training. I haven't taught the class, but I pretty much know what it is just from my experience, what the kids will be doing. And I'm excited about it because I think that a lot of kids that we graduate from our high school go into engineering and have never been exposed to engineering. They just chose that field. That's what I want to go into. Now, if they're exposed to it in high school, if they take engineering classes in high school, when they get to college, they already know that's what they want to do. They don't have to go to college and say, oh, this is not for me, and go on to something else. So the success rate for these students is higher because they already know this is what they want to do when they get to college. So it really is a good program. I've been exposed to it, like I said, where I came from. I knew the teachers that taught these classes, and they had a really good success rate too. I guess I can take questions if you have any, and I'll see if I can answer them.
Will girls be allowed to be in the engineering class?
Girls are allowed in my shop class.
All right.
I have 9 girls in my guitar making class this year, as opposed to, I think I had 2 or 3 last year.
Good question. This is a 9th, 10th, it's aimed at freshman, sophomore, right?
It's
The first
9 through
class?
12.
Yeah, but the first class is? So it's open all 4 years?
It's open all 4 years.
Prerequisites?
No prerequisites. There are classes that are recommended for them to take simultaneously, like geometry, earth science, and some of the classes that we already offer at the school.
So my concern is the value of it, if you will, to kids who are not necessarily on the college trajectory. Career tech kind of thing. Will it have enough for them, or is it something they're going to say, oh no, that's not for me. I don't have the math to do be an engineer.
But on the other hand, they can become designers, and they don't have to be engineers. Designers are not always engineers.
Right. Well, and all these nice CNC machines, somebody operates them.
Somebody has to operate them, and that's where the computer integrated manufacturing comes from. They learn how to design something and put it into a machine that will actually make the
Machine
parts.
instructions kind of thing. Because I think I'm thrilled about the concept of the course. My concern is that it will cut across all the levels and have maybe potentially something for everybody, or at least as a discovery tool.
Right. I worked with a lot of designers that didn't have college degrees, but they could design. And as far back as the late 90s, I was working with designers that were doing 3D modeling on the computer then, and they were designing things. And the engineers would give them a concept, and they would draw it up, and they'd show us models of what we wanted. So, I mean, it's come a long way since then. The software is definitely a lot more advanced.
So your intention is to, in addition to excite, but also demystify sort of the concept of engineering, because a lot of kids will look at engineering as something that's not for them because maybe they don't feel strong in mathematics, is a typical example.
This is true.
But this will kind of hopefully open their eyes and see there's a lot of facets to it, and there may very well be a place if they find some aspect of it exciting. Right?
Yeah, I really believe that, because when I went to college, some of my classes were in the engineering building, and I always felt like, that's beyond me, And after working in manufacturing and working with the engineers, I'm saying, it's not really, it really isn't beyond anybody at that point.
Good, thanks.
Any other questions or comments? I just want to say I love the problem-solving project nature of this class.
Oh yeah, the
Hopefully that'll
problem-solving
appeal to-
thing is kind of cool. I mean, one of the projects that I saw the kids working on at Woodside was they had to make something that would sort marbles of different sizes. So they had to design something and come up with something that would sort marbles.
Yeah, bring it to the elementary schools and have the kids try it out there.
So I mean, there's a lot of little projects like that they would be working on.
Right, great, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank
Go home
you.
and get a good night's sleep.
Thanks, Anthony. I'll also mention the courses that the students will be expected to be in are co-requisites, so they're expected to be in the courses simultaneously with enrollment in the Introduction to Engineering. And also, Project Lead the Way is UC CSU approved, so it naturally got pretty quick A through G approval as an elective. Mm-hmm. So it's already waiting for us really to put kids into and start that next year. So thank you again. Next up is going to be Sayuri Baritica, who Allison, our wonderful principal, has already alluded to. She's coming up. She's going to talk about Avid 2 and Avid Tutors, which is our next step in the Avid pathways.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
I just want to say, before I get into Avid, I want to say thank you for appreciating that student that wants to be an auto mechanic. Now counselor, which was a shock to me. It makes me really happy to hear that he's being recognized by our community. And if you don't mind, I'm going to let him know tomorrow.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm here to talk to you guys about 2 Avid courses that I'm proposing. One is Avid 2, which is the second sequence.
it would be the 10th grade level of AVID. So this year we are currently having AVID 1, which is a 9th grade class, who is traveling to Google tomorrow, which we are all very, very excited about. So AVID 2 is the 10th grade class, so it's a second sequence. It's going to be essentially the same in terms of structure, so we're going to be teaching the Wicker strategies, which is writing, inquiry, collaboration, organization, and reading. But we will also be developing the skills that they're learning this year and then enhancing them by doing a lot of career, like resume building, as well as test preparation, like the Casey, for example, as well as college entrance exams like the SAT or the ACT. So it's really building upon the skills that they're learning in the first year and then enhancing them and building more upon them the second year as a 10th grade class. So that's AVID 2 in a nutshell. AVID Tutors is a little bit different. It is basically for our 11th and 12th grade students who are willing to take kind of a mentoring, a leadership, and an academic support role in these students' lives. So this year I have 4 juniors and seniors in my first period AVID 1 class with my 9th graders, and then we have 5 AVID tutors helping support the AVID program down at CUNY in their 8th grade class. And these students, without them, we wouldn't have the amount of impact that we have on these students right now. I have these seniors that are growing relationships with these kids who could be taking different paths, but because of that mentoring, because they've gone through high school, because they're already self-confident, are actually building relationship with these students, but even more, they're actually supporting them in their academics. So AVID as a model has 2 days of curriculum and then 2 days of tutorials. And that's basically where they do group work. And students come with a problem that they are struggling with in a class, for example, and the AVID tutor guides the group in terms of asking questions so these students can then understand the problem and also figure out a way to solve it on their own. So it's been really impactful and they've been phenomenal. So those are the 2 courses that I'm proposing to you guys. Do you have any questions for me? Any questions?
I have one.
Yeah.
Would you tell the camera what AVID stands for, just to be completely transparent?
Hello. Okay. So AVID stands for Advancement via Individual Determination, and it is a program that is widespread throughout the country that helps first-generation college-bound students get the support, both culturally as well as academics, in order to reach their goal of attending a post-secondary education, whether that be college, community college, or some sort of vocational program.
Thank you.
Real quick,
As I was reading Paw Prints yesterday,
yeah.
that's cool. I saw that there were the AVID tutors already this year. So are they just volunteering then this year? They're not getting any credit, or are they getting community service credit for it?
They're
Or?
in a class, so they're a first period class because I would like them to be in the class present every single day, as well as a 6th period AVID tutor class. So the first period helps Half Moon Bay, and then 6th period goes down to CUNY to help their 7th period class.
So it's a current class, or?
They're TAs.
Oh, they're TAs.
Yeah.
Okay, so this would change it so that it would be a class.
Yes.
That's all I was just curious about. Okay.
That's a nice idea.
Yeah.
We
Good.
Yeah.
sort of hear teachers' wonderful empowerment.
Yeah. Any other questions?
No.
Perfect.
Great idea.
Great. Have
I
fun
do.
at Have fun at Google.
Thank you very much. We will. We definitely will.
Okay. Thank you.
So jealous. Thanks, Sayuri. Up next is going to be our English department chair, Andy Boysen. He's going to discuss expository reading and writing, which is a senior level course.
Good evening, everybody. Hi. I'm Andrew Boysen, English Department Chair. I'm asking for board approval for the adoption of the expository reading and writing course. It's also known as the ERWC course. It's a course that was created in conjunction with CSU, the California Department of Education, and the State Board of Education. And this began, I believe, about 2003, 2004, and has gone through an evolution, and it is currently, its practice is expanding throughout the state. And so the course is, in essence, a contemporary composition course and a rhetoric course. And it is designed for the senior level, for the 12th grade year. There is some flexibility with the scheduling of that. You can teach it the 11th grade year. You can teach it 1 semester 11th grade, 1 semester 12th. However, there's one important distinction in that the course was designed initially for to meet the problem of remediation at the CSU level. And so the CSU got together with those agencies and as well as representatives from the high school in an attempt to stop incoming freshmen from having to take remedial courses. They were unable to pass the EPT, the English Placement Test, or and on the math side, the ELM, which is the placement test for mathematics, which is a separate issue than what I'm concerned with this evening. And so what we'd like to do is have that course be adopted and approved by you, so that it provides us more flexibility at the senior year to offer that course for students who might not want to take AP Literature, however, would like to perhaps have a course which would prepare them for a four-year university, entering that four-year university after graduation. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have about the course.
Okay. Any questions?
No, I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yes.
What's in the box?
What's in the box? That's the curriculum. So.
You were thinking maybe treats? Coffee? Coffee? Is there coffee in there?
Sorry, I can't provide that. I wish. But it's a curriculum for the 180-day year. So we have 2 semesters. It's expanded. When I first went to my training there's a 4-day training. You go to 2 days prepping through the curriculum, and then you meet back toward the end of the school year and you debrief and collaborate and discuss successes, failures, modifications, things like that with your colleagues, your high school colleagues. So that's what this is. But when I began the binder, it was actually, I think, when they were just rolling it out. So I do need to return back and get caught up. 2 of our faculty members do have current certification in the implementation of the curriculum, one of which is the current senior English teacher. So, but when I did go, it was about half the size of one of these binders. So you can see that it's expanded quite a bit over since my training, which I think it was in 2005. I think. So.
What's a typical exercise in that? Is it just following a prompt, or is it an analysis and then
Well, see, there's 14 modules, I guess they'll call them, or 14 units to the entire year. And so they tend to deal with, first introduction to rhetoric, composition, basic fundamentals about the study of argumentation, persuasion, those things like that. But they tend to revolve around contemporary issues. So just to point to the handout, which you have racial profiling, the idea of good food, bad food, philosophical issues, the value of life, which I believe relates to perhaps euthanasia. That's a new unit that I am unfamiliar with. Juvenile justice, the idea of language, gender, and culture. So they really seem to circulate around, we'll say, contemporary issues. But the structure, what they're asking students to do is really no different than what's in the California state frameworks, and which will also be with the Common Core state standards, which is just the recursive process that happens with language arts, which is, of course, an analysis of text, accessing a text on a personal level, and then stepping away from that, accessing it from a rhetorical angle, and then progressively working through the writing process and writing applications, which start out probably a little bit smaller in nature, progressively move to more complexity involving research, and perhaps a listening, speaking, presentation angle. So it's I don't want to say it's the same drill, but really composition courses do that. It's just a matter of what content are you using to go through those steps. Okay. Does that answer your question? Yeah, great, thanks.
Great, thank you.
Do you envision it replacing another senior level class, or do you envision more seniors taking this?
So that the scheduling issues, a collective decision. There's English 4, which is what we currently have. And currently we do use several of the units already, from the curriculum. We also have a senior exit project, which is quite popular, and we don't want to do away with that. And it is a little bit more literature heavy. In the course, there is a biography and 2 pieces of fiction in that course, in the current one. Okay, so it's not as though it's just shuffling out literature altogether, but there is more so in the English 4 course. So I think it's trying to target, in terms of statistics, the way the course works is when people take what's called the EP, there's the EAP program, which is the early assessment program, which is sort of the big entity which helps implement this curriculum, okay? And so part of the CST, California Standards Test, that students take their 11th grade year, they have to also take an additional test, 15 multiple choice items and a writing prompt. And that's, I think, a 45-minute writing prompt. And so when we get the scores back or the data back from that, it tells us who is already proficient enough so that they don't have to take the English placement test at the California State University system.
Oh, okay.
So there's that population. Roughly, last year was about 32% of the population juniors, this year seniors. About 15% were what they call conditional. And those 15% are conditional. If they take this class, the expository reading and writing course, and they pass it with a C or better, then they do not have to take the EPT, again, when they enter the CSU system. But then we have the other part of our population, which is somewhere 54%, which are not ready currently. So we have 31% last year ready,
Right.
15% conditional, and then 54% not ready as juniors.
Right.
To enter freshman year of college.
Yeah.
Okay, so the
Would
goal is
they
to...
be able to take that class, this class as well then?
Yes.
Those 54%?
Right, right.
Would they, is it the same requirement for them in terms of C, or is it, do they have to get a better grade?
No, unfortunately, that 54% would still have to take the EPT,
Oh, and then they
regardless
take
of
the
how they
EPT.
perform in the
So
course.
this would prepare them for the EPT,
Right,
basically.
and so the goal is, yes, to try to make them college ready as best they can. And on the community college level, it's done on a college by college basis. So that is up to the decision of those individual sites. It's not a campus-wide thing, unlike the CSU.
Right. So you're envisioning less people would take English 4, it sounds like, and more people
Perhaps
would
it
take
depends on their needs. Because the exit project, like I said, is very popular, and some people, although they're not taking AP literature, do like the degree of literature, perhaps in English 4, and be more attracted to that rather than a contemporary composition course,
I see, right.
a rhetoric course.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. Great, thank you. Any further questions or comments?
Thank you. Thanks.
All right, thank you.
So the materials will be posted online and the public can review them. And if the board has any more comments, we will bring this item back next month for approval of these courses.
Thank you.
I just want to say thank you all for hearing our wonderful teachers, and I especially want to thank our teachers for hanging in there. These are the real experts in helping me do what I do, and I rely heavily on them. So thank you all for sticking it out tonight.
Jared, before you leave the podium, several of the teachers mentioned staff development, that there were days of training or maybe retraining. How is that, is that already in your budget? Is that going to be handled easily, the staff development portion? I mean, we're talking about a substitute, we're talking about the registration fees, blah, blah, all that.
In regards to
The new coursework.
in regards to getting them prepared to teach it, yeah, we do have some monies available to us at our disposal. It's not very much. Thankful for our the foundation for providing some, as well as CEF. So we do have some available funds there to provide for subs and some of that development. There's not much, but we're always creative at the high school, and always keeping in mind what's best for our students. We are always going to try and do everything to get our teachers best prepared.
Right, well, do you foresee that being taken care of, or could that be a potential difficult area?
Well, the intro to engineering course we included in the request.
I saw that.
A request to the CEF.
Yeah.
So I don't know how creative we're gonna be if that comes back.
If that's denied.
Yeah, that's a big question mark. But I have her standing next to me, so.
So one of the other parts that we are so fortunate, not only is the foundation listening to the voices of the administration and the teachers and our department chairs as instructional leaders, I believe they would support discretionary funding for professional development. In addition, AVID is fully supported by our school site council and categorical funding. We as a school site not only place this in our loss action plan and report, we have decided as a school community that we want to support our mid-kid to college, our first gen to college. And we believe the best way, and the research shows that Avid is the way to do that. So we're able to use categorical funding, and we have dedicated funds to continuing to support professional development. We are actually on a fast track to Avidizing our school.
Avidizing?
Coin that phrase.
Advertising.
Didn't make that up.
It's late.
I also didn't make up voluntold. But we've taken Avid's strategy is school-wide at this point. We have a site team of 10, which is 1/4 of our entire teaching staff. We've had teacher leaders from our Avid site team who went last summer to Avid Summer Institute, who have actually have their whole departments adopting notes, style of note-taking, which is Cornell Notes. We're going to change that next year, I believe, to Cougar Notes. Since the students don't like Cornell Notes, we'll just change the name, confuse them. So we definitely have some committed funds, both through categorical funding with School Site Council, through our foundation, which we are so fortunate, continues to fund more than any school over the hill. They dedicate $10,000 a year to professional development for teachers, as well as our hopes that CEF will support the engineering course, and of course it is so needed by our students, both for CTE as well as college readiness. And we do have a waiver process, so open enrollment is possible for all those kids, even if they don't meet the concurrent or co-requisites.
But my concern was these 4 courses next month, they're up for approval, they're approved, and then we lack funding for staff development. That would be a bummer. That would put a big wrench in the whole thing. So I'm just questioning, will there be staff development funds allocated for all that?
So fortunately,
Yes.
I am tight with a penny, and I watch diligently our site budget. So last year, I was able to diligently pinch pennies and watch it. So I'm hopeful that I can continue to curb photocopying, and our teachers have been diligent about really thinking through, that's a big expense on our site, and continue to watch the money to make sure that I set aside those monies to make sure that these kids have the opportunity to take the courses that they choose.
And that staff gets developed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. We're pretty well set with all 3 of them, with the exception of the rigorous course training that Anthony would have to undergo to
Right.
implement the intro to engineering. But like we said, that's a pretty big request in the CEF.
But isn't that something, most of those companies, or that, in your IED program, I forget the name of the group that.
Project Lead the Way.
Yeah, Project Lead the Way. Isn't there a chance of getting funding for that from those agencies, from corporate sponsorship or something? Can you write a grant for it?
They suggest different places for grants.
And we can continue to refine how we look at Perkins. So we just qualified for $16,000 this year, which has been earmarked and dedicated to ag, to our agriculture pathway and CTE pathway. But I think that there's room there to look. I'm confident we're going to make this happen.
Yeah.
So I will go beg, borrow, steal, and partner more in order to make sure that Anthony is prepared to teach the course.
Thank you.
Let's not put that on. Thank you.
Great, thank you. We'll look forward to it
I'm
next
on record
month.
with that, aren't I?
Yeah.
I didn't mean the steal part, but the beg and the borrow, the beg and the borrow, I will do.
Metaphor.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Susan.
Thank you all for staying.
Yes, thank you. It brings us to item 13, consent items. I have a motion to approve.
Motion to approve consent items?
All in favor?
Before the ayes go, I would just like to say thank you to all those donations. Every month, we approve the consent agenda item, and within the consent agenda item is the list of donations to our school district from parents, organizations, it's to all the different schools, and I don't know how many people know about that because it's part of the consent agenda item, and I would just like to say thank you each and every month to all those people for their donations. Anyway, so
Well
Thank
said.
you. Agreed.
now we can do ayes.
Okay. All in
Ayes.
favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. It brings us to action items. 14A, approve the Common Core State Standards Local Implementation Plan.
So last month, we brought the plan to you and described the monies that have been allocated from the state of California to help us make the transition to Common Core standards. Monies for technology, professional development, or instructional materials, and we've decided and proposed that we will use $500,000 of that allotment for instructional materials and allocate the rest, $164,000 for professional development, which is a 75%, 25% split. And the reason we're not asking for technology funding is because we have our bond that's supporting technology. So this evening, we're asking for you to approve our implementation plan so we can begin utilizing these funds.
I have a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
I'll second.
Okay, any questions or comments or discussion? Questions for Elizabeth or comments? Okay, sounds good, more money. So roll call vote is the resolution? No. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I heard Kirk in the restroom.
4-0. You're gonna be like, why was that one 5-0? Okay, thank you, Elizabeth.
Thanks, Liz.
That moves us to item 14B, approve the Cabrillo Unified School District and Cabrillo Unified Teachers Association contract co-curricular and special assignment salary schedule for 2012 to 2015.
Thank you. Presented to the governing board this evening as a revised co-curricular and special assignment salary schedule for the duration of the agreement that we reached last May 30th, approved by the board on May 30th for 2012 through 2015. And it should be noted that when the board did approve the agreement, particularly the salary schedule, the payments within the salary schedule are automatically adjusted accordingly based on the formula that's provided at the bottom of the page of the co-curricular. I'd really like to point out that really with appreciation to CUTA, we continue to have positive momentum at the negotiating table. About 2 weeks ago, the district negotiating team, Dr. Rorick, Crystal, our newest negotiating team member, Allison Silvestri, we negotiated again successfully in a spirit of cooperation with CUTA. I'd like to thank Tom Cox, Mike Putnam, the chief negotiator, Kathleen Wall, and Misty Belmonte has returned to the table. And I think within an hour or so, we quickly finalized the co-curricular schedule. This was an ongoing dialogue that continued through the month of June into September, and we finalized in September. And really, on some level, we're updating titles, taking off titles that no longer exist, and also discussing some new positions that we would like to add to the co-curricular schedule. So enclosed within the board packet, we have the revised co-curricular schedule. We have strikes for positions that have been removed, mutually agreed, pending board approval. And also in bold, we have new positions. In column A, as you can see, the Diversity Advisory Board, if that sounds familiar, that was part of the old strategic plan, a committee that was meeting, that is no longer meeting. But we felt it would be important to continue any board work that was directed by the governing board with compensation. So we've retitled that Board Advisory Committees. So at any point where we need to form a committee to review any topics at the board's directive, we already have a committee placed within the co-curricular. You will also see in column B, we struck music coordinator for intermediate, and it's actually really because it's called, as Tom quickly pointed out, the school dance coordinator. Talked a lot about the difference between music coordinator and school dance coordinator, but that's the appropriate title. And you can see at the high school level, we actually, for similarity, if you will, struck dance supervisor and replaced with school dance coordinator. In column C, for intermediate, baseball, gymnastics, and softball are no longer courses being offered, as well as cross-country, but it is with the replacement of the cross-country head. That was the appropriate title based on the feedback from committee members. We also added Avid Site Coordinator. As you've heard this evening, that is a program with a lot of momentum, not just at the high school, but Cunha, and also with Raj moving over from Cunha to Pilocitos, a program that we anticipate perhaps someday moving not just to Pilocitos, but other sites within the district. So we mutually agreed to add that as a new position. In column D, we eliminated Proficiency Coordinator. And actually, we had a hard time remembering where did that title come from historically, but we felt that the title could be struck. In column E, you'll see Drama and Musical. And I know when you see Drama and Musical being struck, you kind of say, wait a minute, we're not taking that off. Actually, we felt, and perhaps Dr. Reamer can attest, the amount of work that is involved in that production. And we felt it was fair to move from column E to column F with a larger compensation, moving from $3,059 to $3,496. So that is one additional cost with regards to the increase of the total cost of the co-curricular. We also added the Future Farmers of America. That's also a budding program, if you will, pardon the pun, within our high school program, maybe inappropriate reference, but the FFA program certainly deserves to be on the co-curricular. And we actually initially had placed it at E, but as we continued to discuss the merit and the workload, we moved that to column F. And you'll also see within column E, Half Moon Bay High School Avid District Coordinator. That's a new position that's been placed on the co-curricular schedule with regards to the potential of having a coordinator district-wide in addition to site coordinators as well. We also struck the BITSA teacher stipend services currently being provided through the San Mateo County Office of Ed. And we also, under column F, struck the administrative assistant because we felt the title would be more appropriate, administrative designee. And then finally, we struck SIP director, Chapter 1 director, and Title 7 director, as those positions are no longer filled. So in summary, this was a result of good dialogue and ongoing communication, and we felt that our work was, and our time was well spent, and we feel comfortable presenting this to the governing board for your approval.
Great. Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
And do any questions or comments?
Just pleased to hear, sorry for thinking that the district and the CUTA is working in a spirit of resolution and connection and problem solving to get the best results. That's the right tone that the board certainly would like to see. Appreciate all your efforts in that regard, and to the whole negotiation team. Thank you.
Here, here. Nothing to add to that. Thank you.
Just real quick, when you talked about music coordinator, I was wondering, did it come up at all, someone to help coordinate the new music program, the kind of 5th grade, because Jim was going to do that before he became principal, and then is that something that we would need as a position like this, or?
Yeah, I don't know where we've transitioned with that, if someone's actually stepped into that. I'm looking to kind of Elizabeth, because I know she worked with Jim on that position. I hate to put you on the spot, but I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if that
question,
was
it's been
appropriate
filled.
here, or if there's some way we could revise it later if we did decide, oh, some teachers should do it. I was just curious.
With regards to this being totally inclusive, it doesn't per se stop the district or the CUTA from coming together and saying, hey, we have a need for this position. As a former union co-president, I was never non-receptive to compensating someone for work done outside of their workday.
Right.
So if a position is needed, it's always a funding issue with regards to where's the money coming from. But that doesn't stop us. We've also talked about having some teacher leads for the Common Core work that will have to be done in the forthcoming year. And that's an issue of sitting down with CUTA and just basically saying, here are some positions we'd like to put on the table, and by golly, people should be compensated accordingly. And this is where we kind of feel that it would fall within this schedule, and then compensating people accordingly.
And just specifically to the music, Jim wanted to sort of wait and see. He wondered if the big part had been getting us organized in the beginning, and so he wanted to see when we moved into the school year if we still needed someone to coordinate that. So we're sort of
So
in a
he might
holding
even be
pattern.
willing to still coordinate with all his other.
Okay.
I thought you were going to ask about the play, because I wish you would.
Well, the play's still there, so it's not really a question for here, but
Next
it
fall.
is a question for who fills that, right?
Next fall, what?
You're gonna do it? But I missed something there.
What's next fall, Luke?
Well, Jim's with regards to his continuation
Yes,
as
yes,
a-
of course, yeah, but, oh.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We're
he's-
putting pressure on him?
No, they're having conversations. They're having
Ah.
conversations with our repertory theater
Yes.
to see how we can work together and perhaps twist Mr. Ward's left arm, because he's right-handed.
Okay. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5+1. Moves us to item 14C, Boys and Girls Club.
Yes, as I mentioned earlier this evening, to put this item on as an emergency item on the agenda, the Boys and Girls Club of the Coast Side, Cunha program, is requesting the governing board give their approval to allow them to apply on behalf of Cunha Intermediate School for a California Department of Education 21st Century Community Learning Centers program grant. This grant would be provided for 5 years and could bring in up to $750,000 over those 5 years based on the number of students participating.
Great. Do I have a motion to approve?
I'll motion.
Okay, second.
Second.
Any questions or comments or discussion?
They are taking care of all the writing, all the application process. We're merely allowing it, correct?
That is correct. Last year, they did go through the process and applied and were unsuccessful. They did score rather high, but not quite high enough. And this year, they brought in a professional grant writer who has successfully written 2 of these grants for other districts here in San Mateo County. So they have greater confidence that they'll be successful this year.
Great.
We wish them luck.
Yeah, this is a great opportunity. Hopefully it'll be funded. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approve 5+1. Yeah. And that brings us to, we no longer 15A, we've taken care of it. 16, future board agenda items. Governing board reorganization for 2014 will take place at the December meeting. Adopt 2014 governing board meeting calendar. Is that also the December meeting we do it? Yeah. Quarterly report on Williams uniform complaints. Is that December as well? Annual independent audit report, December. And policies maintenance updates, which we tend to have.
And I'll be presenting first interim in December as well.
First interim.
Like a big packet.
And future.
Yes.
So we should bring our 2014 calendars?
Yes, in
Yeah.
December, bring your 2014 calendars. And the proposed dates will be in the board packet.
So we can do a little.
I already have an issue with the February one because it's going to be the
That's really-
Shakespeare play day. Yeah, so November 15th, future events, November 15th is end of the first trimester. November 18th is our Measure S Citizens Oversight Committee meeting at 6 p.m. here in the district office. November 19th is our ELAC-DLAC meeting at 6 p.m. in the Half Moon Bay High School. November 20th is the CEF Science Committee meeting at 3:15 in the district office. November 21st is our Parcel Tax Planning Committee meeting at 6 p.m. here in the district office. November 25th is the CEF District Communication meeting at 6:30 p.m. in the district office. And we have Thanksgiving holiday break on the 28th and 29th. There will be no school and district will be closed. December 2nd is our, do we have another Measure S Citizen Oversight Committee meeting that day? There were 2.
December
Yeah,
2nd.
December 2nd. Okay, another Measure S Citizen Oversight Committee meeting at 6 p.m. December 3rd is the Chamber Education Committee. Who is our chamber representative again?
8.
I am. So you can attend 4 p.m. in the district office. December 5th is our immersion study group at 4 p.m. in the district office. Do you have board members on that? Is that something you didn't, there's no board members at this point on that one. Okay. December 6th is our Night of Lights, parade and all the fun things. December 7th is the Winter Festival at Fairlawn View.
December 10th is our next strategic planning meeting to review the goals. It's not on here, but- And then December 12th is our next regular government meeting at 7 p.m. So we need a motion first to continue the meeting past 10 p.m. And then a motion to return to closed session. We're going back to closed session. You think closed session is going to be over in 10 minutes? Yeah. Do I have a motion
So
to
moved.
continue? Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And we'll be returning to closed session. Thank you. Last
Thank you,
two.
Brenda.
Thank you, Brenda.
Oh,
How long has this been happening?
they started it last year.
Last year.